Hey, Nichole Huntsman, your astrologer from moderncosmic.com. We are going to talk about love triggers, and this is sort of an introductory video. You need to at least, though, have a fundamental understanding of the four basics of astrology, the building blocks. So you've got to understand the zodiac signs. You need to know their glyphs. You need to understand the planets, the planetary rulers, or at least be willing to learn these things as we go. You need to understand the planets themselves and what they symbolize. You need to understand houses, and you need to understand aspects. Okay, so starting off, I am using a birth chart. This is my birth chart just because it's readily available and I know my birth chart. So pull up your birth chart and go to astro.com to get a free birth chart. Someone requested that I show you guys how to pull up a birth chart, but it's pretty easy. You just go to astro.com, go to extended chart selection. There's even an option there like natal chart, like just to draw a birth chart. You need to know your birth date, place, and time in order to draw an accurate birth chart. Okay, so the houses are all accurate. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pop open that birth chart and we're going to look first and foremost at the fifth house. So fifth house, first of all, I've got a fifth house that's lovely. It's what's known as an untenanted fifth house. There's nothing in it. There's no planets. The fifth house is the house that has to do with romance. This is the house, if you've got it's your creativity, it's your libidinous kind of that energy that you might apply towards romance or that you might apply towards self-expression, ego expression, which would be creativity. It's also a house that has to do with children, the pregnant woman, things like this. But we're going to focus on romance. First and foremost, if you've got planets there, make a note of the zodiac sign and the degree, okay, of that planet. Just make a little note. We're going to talk about 6 different things here. So that's number 1. If you've got any planets in the fifth house. If you don't have any, write none, okay? Secondly, we're going to move on over to the 7th house. So the 7th house is the house that has to do with partnering. It's our Libra house. With the 7th house, it's not inherently romantic in my mind necessarily. It's kind of more especially when we see this in forecasting, it's our attitude towards partnering, our attitude towards marriage, our attitude towards, commitment with others. When we have the slower moving planets come, whether it's through transit or solar arc or progression, when they make aspects to the 7th house cusp, we tend to see people's attitudes towards relationship change and shift, depending on what the planet is that's making the aspect. But if you've got planets here, again, make a note of the planet itself, the zodiac sign, and the degree, okay? Then we're going to come on back to the 5th house. Number 3, look at the cusp of the 5th house, okay? This is your 3rd romantic trigger. The cusp of your 3rd house, or your 5th house, sorry, look at the zodiac sign that cusp falls into. As we move around, we move around in a counterclockwise motion, okay? When we move around the zodiac, around a birth chart, around any wheel, astrology wheel, at least in Western astrology. So you're going to look first. This is the cusp. It's always the first line of that little pie-shaped piece that you hit. That's the cusp of the house. This is the 5th house cusp. This is the 6th house cusp, 7th house, and so on. Okay, so not to overwhelm you with details, just focus on the 5th house cusp. Look right here. The cusp hits this outer wheel, this ring. Notice where it hits and the little space that it falls into. In my case, it falls into the 30 degrees of Sagittarius. And so my cusp of my 5th house lands in Sagittarius. The ruler of Sagittarius, this is why you need to know your rulers, because that's how you locate, you've got to locate that ruler. So the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. Jupiter is, in my birth chart, up in the 11th house, okay? So although I don't have planets in my 5th house, the ruler is the ruler of of any house, it adds this extra dimension of information, okay? So we all have rulers of all of our houses. So even if you don't have planets somewhere, it's okay, have no fear. You're going to for sure have at least a cusp ruler somewhere in your chart, and it's going to give a lot of information about that house. I'm going to give you an example with mine. I'm going to go through each of my little points. I'm going to do it just sort of briefly, but to help you see how you can delineate your own, okay? With my 5th house, first and foremost, the cusp, look at what it falls into. Mine's Sagittarius. 5th house is that house of romance. It's the house of flings, kind of, I'm being very simplistic here obviously for time reasons, but this is the house when we think of cavorting and playing with someone, and there's not necessarily deep emotion attached to 5th house relating. It's more enjoyable, pleasurable, creative energy that you share with another person, okay, when it comes to romance. So it's falling in love, right, before you get into the really deep, heavy stuff of everyday relating. Fifth house cusp in Sagittarius would suggest flirtatious. There's a flirtatious quality and naivete. And I like to help people. I like to have a lot of contacts with a lot of different people just because I enjoy human beings in general. And I like to be like a cheerleader to people. I like to be positive and focus on sort of positive outcome. And this includes in my romantic relationships. So when I meet someone that I really like, I typically take kind of a childlike approach to it. And I'm kind of fast, plus I have Moon in Aries. But I'm kind of like, oh, I like you. It's kind of like a dog or something, I don't know. So that comes up to, you've got to then look at, it's ruled by Jupiter, but my Jupiter is in Cancer. And so Cancer is concerned with emotional security, to be very simplistic. And having a Jupiter in Cancer means I like to support people emotionally. I like to, if somebody's feeling any kind of emotion that they're struggling with, I like to show up and sort of guide them through it, help them through it. I mean, that's what I do for work every day. In the 11th house, which is the house that has to do with the collective. So I get many times misread as someone who is maybe like, I am flirtatious in a sense, I suppose. I'm social. Like I like to talk to and joke and meet a lot of different people, but it doesn't mean that it's anything more than just a social interaction. Okay, it's 11th house. It's an 11th house Jupiter in Cancer. I love repartee. I love talking with people. I love learning about people. I love spending time with people, friends and things like that. Doesn't mean that it's romantic at all. I could spend a whole weekend with a male friend, and for me, it wouldn't be romantic at all if I wasn't romantically interested in him. Okay, it might be different for him, depends on the person. But so point being, dissect that ruler of the fifth house to get a feel if you want to know if someone is into kind of one night stands. I have like a cramp in my foot. Ow! I'm getting excited. If you want to know if someone is into one night stands, you look at their fifth house. Their fifth house will give you a lot of information about how they sort of like do those more casual romantic relationships. If you see strong, just think of the zodiac signs that have to do and the planets that have to do with sort of non-committal energy or activity. Any of the fire signs, the air signs, even Uranus, even Mars is like all about just getting all up in there and just being physical with someone, just enjoying the physical act. You can even have Taurus stuff that's all about just the hedonistic side of things. So anyway, we won't go into that right now. But back up to that 11th house, that Jupiter that's in there. So make note of, again, that cusp ruler. So the cusp ruler here of the fifth house, boop, 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 being the Jupiter. Make a note of the planet, Jupiter, zodiac sign, Cancer, and the degree, 4. Okay? And I'll tell you why in a moment, why those things are important. Next, we're going to go to the 7th house. So the 7th house, that house of marriage, a house of partnering, and same thing, look at the cusp. In this one, for example, I've got the cusp, my descendant is in Aquarius. Like I already said, I'm going to be very simplistic with this. I'm not going to go into deep detail, but Aquarius is nonconformist. Aquarius is all about also being partnered with someone that we consider a friend, being partnered with someone who we feel like we can grow with, we can learn with. There's an intellectual component to Aquarius. There's a kind of a cosmic, even sort of a detached, thing that happens with Aquarius, a high need for freedom in relationships. Also I didn't mention this. Back with this fifth house, the co-ruler of the fifth house, because I have Capricorn here, is Saturn. Capricorn in the fifth house of these sort of casual romantic relationships, Capricorn's not so casual. Capricorn is about linear sort of progression, and Capricorn wants to know that we're working on something right now, that we're building towards something. It likes commitment, it likes longevity, but my Saturn is in the 12th house. There's an element here of the 12th house being idealistic. It's the soulmate. It's searching for the soulmate and sort of waiting until that connection arrives and always kind of reaching for it and not sort of being satisfied until that's found. So this is important because if you then look at my 7th house, initially we've got, first and foremost, we've got this Aquarius, is on the cusp of my 7th house, ruled by Uranus. It's the modern ruler, which is in the 3rd house. That Uranus, so make a note of the ruler, again, by the actual planet itself. That's going to give you information about how this person does partnership. Look at the zodiac sign it falls into. Mine is Scorpio. In this case, because this is Uranus, it's an outer planet, so it's generational. So kind of everybody my same age is going to have their Uranus and Scorpio sort of somewhere. So it has more to do with the collective kind of things we're bringing forth as a generation and our attitudes towards, in this case, marriage, which is a little bit we're sort of redefining what marriage even is. In the third house, which is the house of communication. Now, in my partnerships, I have to feel like I have a partner that I'm intellectually compatible with, and that there's a simpatico there with the way that our brains work and our communication style, or else I get bored very easily. Okay, so especially someone who's got a lot of kind of Pisces 12th house stuff happening with the romance houses, they're going to be idealistic. And so if they've also got Uranian things happening, and they've also got Aquarius or Gemini stuff happening, they could get bored, and then they could look elsewhere. Now, speaking for myself, I'm very loyal. Like, I have a moon in the 8th house. Like, when I really love somebody, I don't, even if I'm with someone I don't want to be with, then I break up with them. I don't stay with them. So, at any rate, you got to look at the whole chart to get the whole picture. But back to the 7th house. With that Aquarius, look at the Uranus, or rather the chart. Oh my gosh, my brain. The ruler of the 7th house, where it falls. This is going to give you information about how this person's going to do partnership. Okay, so in this case, it says my partnerships are going to be a little bit unconventional. In the 3rd house, it even suggests the 3rd house is the Gemini house, meaning that there's more than one. It could just simply be that someone gets married more than once. That's a possibility. For me, you see there's a connection between Uranus, this unconventional sort of freedom-loving energy, and also this desire for growth and expansion, connecting up into Jupiter, which is in the 11th house, which is the Uranus house. So my relationships have to have a high degree of intellectual connection, but it's also in Cancer. And this is in Scorpio, and those are both very emotional signs. So it really needs to kind of be both. And there needs to be an element with, speaking just through my birth chart, of Uranus appreciates things being detached to a certain degree. When I was married for 14 years, when my husband was out of town, that was kind of when our marriage was the best. Just during those periods where he was gone and then home and then gone and home. Kind of Uranian and Aquarian types, if you've got someone whose romance planets are affected by Uranus, Aquarius, or the 11th house, they need an element of detachment. It's kind of like they need a really long rope to go do their thing, and they need to feel like they don't have a rope tying them down. I'm sure there's a much better metaphor, but there needs to be, it's more exciting for them when there is an element of, you belong to this person and they belong to you, but it's not always super predictable. They need a little element of unpredictability, okay? And look at the moon for more information about that. But anyway, point being, let's come back to the 7th house. So the 7th house, this is, as I said, this is the cusp rule of the 7th house. That's your 4th indicator. So for me, it's at Uranus in Scorpio, 9 degrees. Okay, make a note of that. Now we're going to move on to the romance planets, the 2 basic ones, Venus and Mars. So first and foremost, if you want to check out where you or your person's Venus is at, this is going to tell you about their love language, so to speak. And okay, so with mine, first and foremost, write down again I keep pointing as though you can tell what I'm pointing at. Look at the zodiac sign it falls into, and then make a note of the degree, okay? So, and if you want to parse this out, pay attention to the house placement first and foremost. So first house for me, that's an Aries house. It's a little bit self-directed. It's very independent. And my Venus, though, this is interesting. Venus is in Virgo. It's ruled by Mercury in Virgo. Mercury is the mind, okay? Venus in Virgo loves analysis. There's a bit of idealism as well to Virgo. There's also a desire to understand things and to categorize things and to analyze things and to critique things and to break things down and to make things make sense. Very much a part of who I am. And in romantic relationships, Virgo and Pisces on this axis of sort of idealism. They have this idea in their head of how they want things to be or how they sort of know things should be. And in my case, also, as far as at the end of the day, what you're going to really enjoy. You've had a long day. What are you going to do at the end of the day that's pleasurable for you? That's your Venus. So with the Venus in Virgo, ruled by Mercury in Virgo, if it was just a Venus in Virgo, it might be, and it wasn't in the first house, maybe it was in the 7th house, maybe it would be I would really enjoy being with my partner and taking care of my partner's needs at the end of the day or something, right? For me, I do love that, but it's more I like to be with my partner, sure. But truth be told, I have a moon in Aries as well. I love learning things. And so ever since I was a little kid, in fact, my ex-husband said you couldn't pass by something with words on it without reading it. And that's true. Sorry about it. And even as a little kid, I go to the grocery store and run after my mom and go to the magazine aisle. And she would get so mad at me and irritated because so as an adult even, okay, there's a selfishness there, but it's this all-consuming desire to read to the end of whatever, okay? And it's connected to my moon. It's an exact quincunx to my moon, which is in the 8th house, which is a little bit obsessive. So it is compulsive. It's an obsessive desire. Once I've started learning something, I really want to understand it very deeply if it's something I'm interested in. And so that's enjoyable for me. Okay, I'm going to give one more example. This is to help you with your partner or with yourself. I'm with friends just last week, just barely, right? And I had a book with me, actually. We're in the car, we're driving somewhere, and they're playing music, and they're being weird and whatever, and talking to each other. And I'm listening to them, and I'm listening to the music, and I'm like, that's so fun. But I'm like reading my book at the same time, multitasking. We can do these things, right? And my friend that's driving, he's getting so bothered with me. And this is, bear in mind, Gemini with a Pisces moon. And he wants sort of this everyone coming together and merging and blending and talking to each other and bouncing off each other and everyone being like one. And I'm there, but there's an element of needing to be kind of detached as well. And this was something throughout even my marriage, where if we went on a road trip and it was his turn to drive and I was reading, he'd get really bothered by it because he felt like I wasn't giving him attention. So you need to understand your person's Venus, though, because that for me is really enjoyable. If you're on a vacation, that is a huge part of what I would want to do on a vacation, is kind of go inward and read or whatever, study something. So understanding your person's Venus will help you be a better partner for them, all right? Secondly, you're going to look at Mars. Make a note of, again, zodiac sign, degree, and house placement. You need that for all the triggers, okay? Mars shows you someone's passion. It shows you, if you want to know how to turn someone on, you just look at their Mars. And this, okay, so I'll talk about my Mars. I hope this isn't boring, me breaking down my chart. It might be, and I apologize if it is, but trying to help you guys if you can, if this is helpful for any of you. So Mars is fire, it's passion, it's libidinous energy. In this case, look at the house first. It's in the 11th house. 11th house sort of sets the stage. 11th house is the Aquarius house. So although I have a Cancer Mars, it's kind of like having a Cancer Aquarius Mars. And they're very different from each other. So Cancer wants closeness. Cancer wants emotional security. Cancer wants a little bit of, it likes to have, I don't know, there's a clinginess to Cancer, all right? But it's in the 11th house, and that's Aquarius. That is the opposite. That's detachment. That is universally sort of being stimulated and turned on by a lot of different ideas, different people, etc. So I'll tell you how this shows up for me. Personally, I am a one-gun girl. I like one partner. I'm not at all into having I've tried the open relationship thing. It just doesn't work for me. I've tried it. That's the Aquarius part of me. I'm willing to try. It didn't work for me. That would be self-betrayal. It'd be lying if I was like, yeah, it was great. I loved it. No, it was very shallow to me, very shallow. So water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, these desire the depths. They desire the underbelly. I want to see the vulnerable side of somebody, and I want to see the real side of somebody, and I want to kind of know that they're around. But it's also in the Aquarius house. So that's that desire for a little bit of space as well. So I really like when a partnership, there's closeness, and then we go do our own thing, and then closeness and go do our own thing. And there's a bit of an unpredictable element to it. That's exciting for me. Also, 11th house Aquarius is also the mind, and it's fringe thinking. So I absolutely love science. I love thinking about things in a way I've never thought about them before. I like when someone teaches me something. I'm very much personally turned on by someone who is smart, and somebody where there's an element of just banter, I guess, communication, conversation, etc. So yeah, I'm a Libra. It's air. I like that stuff, learning things, I suppose. All right, so that's just a little example of how to break down a chart. I hope this is helpful. I'm going to show you on the next video how to take these individual, now you've got your 6 points, how you're going to take these and you're going to use them for transits, solar arcs, progressions, all your forecasting needs, okay? Oops, my startup disk was almost full. I better erase videos, okay? Have a good one, bye-bye.